Somehow we got cut off on the random number seed, so let me kind of cover that. So just kind of rehash, random number seed is just a way for the random numbers to basically get, where do they get their information from? And we can actually tell it to kind of restart with the same random numbers, or stay with the same random number. This is because the system time changes every 100th of a second, so it's using the internal clock. And it's fairly safe to say that each time you import the random numbers, a different sequence of random numbers will be generated. However, there may be some applications in which you want to always generate the same sequence of random numbers. If that's the case, you can do a random number.seed, a random.seed function to specify. An example they show is random.seed10. In this example, the value 10 is specified as a seed value, and it will always produce the same sequence of pseudo-random numbers. So I've tried to think of an example of when we would want to need, or when we need something like that. I guess if we were maybe working on some kind of a gaming system where we created random numbers and we wanted to test the same sequence of random numbers, I could see that. But I don't see it being used that often. Okay. So up to this point, we have been passing items to a function and getting items back from a function. So what we want to do now is, we're getting items to a function, but we've not been getting things back from a function. So now let's talk about how we can get data back from a function. I'm over on page 261. And so up to this point, we've been writing void functions. That means nothing's being returned. Now we're going to have it return something to us. Let's open up total ages. And there, again, the first executable line is 23, main, so it calls main. And here it says first age, int, so we're going to get the age from the user. We're going to convert it to an int and throw it into first age. We're going to ask user for a second age, convert it to an int, and throw it into the variable second age. And then we're going to say total is equal to sum. So if we look down here, here is a function called sum, but look at this, we're saying total is equal to sum. That means something's coming back from sum. So if we look down here at sum, notice we're passing first age and second age. It's receiving it as num1, num2, remember passed by value. And we say result is equal to num1 plus num2 and return result. So the return says take what we basically, again, it's also passing back by value. So it's passing the value of num1 plus num2, and when it comes back, it's going to be put into the total variable, and down there we can say together you are total years old. Okay, so again, we get the first age, second age, total calls the sum function. We come into here, when we return result, that gets put back into total. We print it, and then we basically come back to line 23 main, and since there's no lines behind that, the program ends. So let's run it. We'll say the first age is 45, second age is 52, and together you are 97 years old. Okay, so now we've got a useful function. It not only just does something and comes back to us, now it actually does something and returns values back to us. So let's go ahead and open up. So the book starts talking about, hey, now let's really start making sure that our functions that we're calling, or make them useful, have them do things. Again, we're talked about divide and conquer. Let's break this process down, and now let's start breaking these down into smaller functions so that we can call that function and get it back. Now, one thing I haven't really talked about functions is functions can also be reusable. So let's say we have a function that calculates FICA for some kind of a paycheck. Well, we might need it here and here and here and here in these different programs. We can just copy that code from one to the other. And we're going to find out later on that we don't have to do that. We can actually do an import. So hang on to your hats there. So let's open up sale price. And here, again, we have a constant global variable called discount percentage, and it's basically 2.2, which is, I believe, 20%. Come down here, our first executable line is 33, which calls main. So main gets called. Our regular price is get regular price. Ah, look at that. So now we have a function to get the regular price. The price is, so we basically are getting the information from the user, convert it to a float, put it into price, and then we return it. And that gets put into regular price. Then we say sell price is regular price minus discount. So look down here. Here's another function called discount, where we pass price, and it returns price times the discount percentage. And so now we're basically, again, divide and conquer. We got one that we get the price from the user. We have the second one that calculates the discount price, and that puts into sell price, and then we go ahead and print that. And then again, when it gets done, it goes back to line 33, and the program ends. So if we run this, enter the regular price, we'll say it's $67.89. Oh, I don't know what happened there. Let's try it again. Okay. So run, so 67.89, enter. The sell price is $54.31. So we don't have to do all of our calculation in one step. We can break it into smaller chunks and call it, because the nice thing about this is this discount price could be utilized in other programs. So I'm not going to spend any time on page 265 IPO charts. You can read that on your own. It's kind of a way for us to design programs. We've got input, output, and then a procedure. So IPO stands for input, processing, and output. So we get the input, how to process it, and output, and we put in little index cards. And I've seen documentation. I've not really seen that used extensively. So, but again, it's kind of a nice to know. So we got a nice in the spotlight. I love the in the spotlights because they kind of put down a scenario of what's needed, and then we actually write the program to do it. So let's open up commission rate. Well, I think, yeah. So commission rate. This is a pretty big program because we've got a main, we've got get sales, we've got get advanced pay, we've got determine commission rate. Okay, so the very first executable line is line 65, which calls the main. So we go into main, and there we have sales equals get sales. We come down here to get sales, and the monthly sales is equal to get the information from the user, convert it to a float, put it under monthly sales, and then we return monthly sales. So it comes back and it gets put into the sales variable. Realize sales is a local variable. Only main can see it. So then we have advanced pay is equal to get advanced pay. So we come down here to get advanced pay. And there we have print, enter the amount of the advanced pay, or enter 0 if no advanced pay was given. So advanced equals float. So we basically get the information from the user, convert it to a float, and put it into advanced. And we return advanced. Now realize advanced at this point is a local variable, but we are passing the value back and putting that into advanced pay inside of main. Advanced pay is also a local variable, only main can see it. Then we have com rate is equal to determine com rate sales. So now we're passing sales to this function, determine com. So here sales comes in, we say if sales is less than 10,000, the rate is 0.1. If sales is 10,000, so basically between 10 and 15,000, it's 0.12. If it's 15,000 to 18,000, it's 0.14. If it's 18 to 22,000, it's 0.6. Else anything above 22 is going to be 0.18. And then we return that rate. So rate is a local variable, but the value of that gets passed back into com rate. So now we say pay is equal to sales times com rate minus the advanced pay. So what we're saying is you get a commission off the sales. If you've been advanced any pay, we're going to take that off of the pay, and then what's left over goes into pay. And we go ahead and print that. Again, we're using printf with the comma separator and rounded to 2 decimal places. And we say if pay is less than 0, print the salesperson must reimburse the company. So if they got too much of an advancement, then now that salesperson has to give money back to the company. And then once that all ends, it comes back to line 65, and the whole thing basically ends right there. So we run this. I'm going to say the monthly sales are going to be 50,000, and the advanced pay, let's say they got 3,000 advanced pay, and the pay is $6,000. So it looks like they probably got $9,000, but they had to take off $3,000 for the advanced pay. We can basically kind of figure this all out with a calculator to see, and that's one thing you'd always want to do with your program, is do what's called a desk check. Go through it, and you become the calculator and do each step manually, maybe write it down and do the calculation with the calculator and see, do you come up with the same exact equations. Okay. So, kind of starting to get a little more complex. We're kind of breaking things down into smaller pieces and parts. And again, the whole divide and conquer. But can we do this with strings? So let's open up. Well, first of all, on the bottom page 269, they talk about returning strings. We can write functions to return strings. We can also, on page 270, we can write functions to return Boolean, whether it's true or false. And we can also return multiple values, so we don't have to return just one value. Now, this is a lot different. That's a lot different than most other programs. Most other programs only allow you to return one value, where Python will allow you to return multiple values, which is really very powerful. If we might have a situation where we don't want to return anything, maybe we might have some kind of an if statement. If this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. If this happens, return this. If this happens, return this. If this happens, we don't want to return anything. We can return none. So that's kind of a nice feature as well. So let's open up. Well, first of all, let's talk about returning multiple values. And let's open, I think it's first name. I can't find a program, so I'm going to do this. I'm just going to start from scratch, and I'm going to say def main, and I'm going to say name equal get name I'm going to come down here and say def get name and it's getting nothing. So remember, indentation is the key here. I'm going to say first is equal to input, enter first name, last is equal to input, enter last name, and I want to say name, I'm just going to say return first, comma, last. Then up here, I'm going to say print name. Then down here, I'm just going to say main. So that becomes the first executable line. So let's run this guy, and it comes up that it does not like that. Forget my semicolons. Got to have your semicolons. Okay, let's try it again. First name, last name, and you know what? I need to concatenate those, don't I? I need to say, yeah, so we did return them, but let's do this. Let's return first. Let's see if that works any better. And there it is, yeah. But the whole point of this, yeah, that returns as one string. But the whole point of this is we can return it as two separate words. We can return two values as opposed to just one. And we could saw that the first time we ran it. There we got both of them back. Okay. Let's open up none demo. So here we have our first executable main, left and right, parenthesis. Here's our def main up here. Again, remember the colon, or I forgot the colon. So num1 equals, so we got to get a number from the user, convert it to an int, throw it in num1. Get another number, convert it to an int, throw it in num2. We're going to do a quotient is divide num1 comma num2. So what we want to do here is we want to make sure that we do not divide by 0. That is a huge no-no in the math world. So we come down, we say, we got def divide num1, num2. If num2 is equal to 0, result equals none. Else result equals num1 divided by num2, and we return result. So when we come back, either none is going to be put into quotient, or the division of num1, num2 is going to be put in there. And it says if the quotient is none, print cannot divide by 0, else printf num1 divided by num2 is quotient. So that's a good example of using a none because you can't divide by 0. So if we run this and I type in 67 and 0, it comes back and says you cannot divide by 0. But if I run it again and type 67 and divide by 5, I get 13.4. So, kind of a nice example of using the none keyword. Okay. Now, the next, we kind of touched on some of these with some of the different imports. I think with turtle is one of the imports we've used. Well, guess what? There's a whole lot of other stuff in there as well that we can also import. And one is the math module. The math module, if you look on page 276, these are just a few of the math functions that we have available to us. So if you want to do a lot of trigonometry or some type of algebraic and different geometry type of formulas, a lot of those different functions are built into the math import. So let's do this. Let's open up square root. And notice the very first thing on line 2, we do an import math. So now we have all of those math functions available to us. So here's my first executable line is 15, so it calls main. And it says number equals float. Input a number from the user, convert it to a float. And then we say square root is equal to math.sqrt number. Ah, that's kind of cool. So it actually calls the function within the math import. It does the square root for us and puts it into square root, and then we can say the square root of number is square root. So that's pretty cool. So we run it. I'm going to type in 67, and the square root is 8.15, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So that's kind of nice. That's kind of nice. So it basically will figure out the square root for us. We don't have to do that calculation ourselves. Let's open up hypotenuse. And this is basically the same thing. So we want to do the hypotenuse of a triangle. So we basically get input of side A and side B of a triangle. We convert it to a float, put it into A and B, and then we say C is equal to math.hypot A comma B. And we'll say the length of the hypotenuse is C. So that's a great calculation as well that we can utilize. So again, we got the import math on line 3. First executable line is 17, which calls main. We run it, and we'll say it's 15 and 10. And so the length of the hypotenuse is 18 point blah, 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 blah. So a nice feature there as well. Now on bottom page 276, we do have pi, and we also have the E, and E is what's called Euler's number, E-U-L-A-R, Euler. So Euler's number, which is 2.718281. So 2.7182812845945. Okay, that's the base of the neutral logarithms. I've never heard of it before. I'm not a math major, so maybe if you're a math major, you know what that is. But it's kind of like pi. Pi is 3.14159, and that number goes on forever as well. But so there's two different numbers there that are built into math. So let's open up circle. And here we've got import math, and we've got def area radius return pi math dot. So it basically takes math.pi, which is 3.14159 and the whole big long number, and multiplies that times the radius that is an exponent 2. And then we've got def circumference radius, and it returns 2 times math.pi radius. Now here's what's strange. How are these things called? There's no call of area, there's no main, there's no nothing. How are these things called? Well, on page 277, we start talking about storing functions and modules. So what we're looking at is a module. So let's take a look at rectangle. And rectangle, there's no import math, but we have def area, width and length, and return width times length. Then we have def perimeter, width and length, and return 2 times width plus length. But again, they're not called anywhere. Let's do this. Let's open up geometry. And the first thing you'll notice on lines 4 and 5 is we have import circle and import rectangle. So I kind of alluded to this a little while ago. This is where we can have modules sitting there and we can include them in anything that we need. For example, I talked about FICA. We might have a FICA module that all it does is the FICA calculation. It just needs these arguments brought in, and it basically returns a parameter. So we have import circle, import rectangle. So everything we just saw in circle and rectangle are now available to geometry. So we have 5 different global constants. We got the area circle choice, circumference choice, area rectangle choice, perimeter rectangle choice, and quit choice. Okay, so if we come all the way down, so all the way down to line 59 is our first executable line. It calls main. So let's take a look at main. So the first thing we have is choice equals 0. It says while choice not equal quit choice. Look at quit choice, that's line 5. So what we're doing is we're giving our user a menu to basically make choices. What do you want to do in this case? So the very first thing it does is it calls the display menu function. So we come down to display menu and it prints, looks like a bunch of spaces and then menu. And it's got print 1, area of circle, 2, circumference of circle, 3, area of rectangle, and 4, perimeter of rectangle, and then 5, quit. So we come back up here. So while it's not equal to 5, which is quit choice, we're going to keep doing this loop. So it comes up and says choice, enter your choice, converts that into an integer, puts it into the choice variable. There we say if choice equals area circumference choice, that's that constant. We're going to say radius is equal to float. We're going to get the radius from the user, convert it to a float, put it into radius, and then we're going to say print the area is circle.area radius. So this is how we call the area within circle, because remember there's an area and rectangle as well. Circle also has an area function. So but how we distinct which function we want called, we say circle.area. So that means it's going to look for the file that's called circle. It's going to call the area within that. It's going to pass radius. And when it comes back, it's going to be printed right after the area is. Else if choice is equal to circumference choice. If we ask for the circumference, we want to know the circumference of a circle. We're going to again ask the user for the circle's radius, convert it to a float, throw it under radius, and then we say print the circumference is circle.circumference, and we're going to pass radius to it. It's going to do that calculation and basically bring it back and print it right after the phrase the circumference is. Else if the choice is equal to area rectangle choice, we're going to ask the user for the rectangle's width, convert it to a float. We're going to ask for the rectangle's length, convert it to a float, and put that into length. Now we have width and length. And then we're going to say print the area is rectangle. This time we're saying rectangle.area, and we're going to pass width and length. That's going to do that calculation, bring it back, and print that right after the area is. Else if the choice is perimeter rectangle choice, again, we're going to get the width and length from the users, convert those to both to floats, and we're going to say the perimeter is rectangle dot perimeter, so we're calling the perimeter function within rectangle. We're going to pass in width and length. It's going to do that calculation, bring it back, and print that right after the perimeter is. Else, if choice equals quit choice, we're going to print exiting the program. Else, we're going to print invalid selection. And so if we hit the quit choice, it's going to say exiting the program. And when it comes up here, the choice is going to be equal to quit choice. It's going to drop out of this loop, which basically goes back to main, where these were basically called. No, this was main, sorry. Which basically goes back to this main here and basically ends the program. So the display menu gets displayed at the beginning of every loop. Okay, so let's run it. Line 30 is bad. What's wrong with 30? Yeah, for some reason, it did not like that, putting that calculation inside of that print statement. So I went ahead and created a C underscore area equals circle dot area radius. And then I say printf this area is, and it basically worked that way. So I'm going to click run, and it seems to work fine then. So I'm going to type in 1 area of a circle. We're going to enter the radius as 56. And it says the area is 9,852, and then that big long number after that. So let's go ahead and do a circumference of a circle. So I'm going to do a 2. We'll type in 34 as the radius, and the circumference is 213 point whatever. And we could do a printf and basically do it so that it basically rounds it to 2 decimal places. So let's do the area of a rectangle. We'll do a 3. And the width is 56. The length is 34. And the area is 1,904. And let's do the perimeter of the rectangle. So we'll do number 4. We'll do the width is 67 and 12. And the perimeter is 158. We'll type in a 5, and the program ends. So, really nice, a really good example of how we import code that we have written, what we call modules. So we can, again, if we have code that's going to be used by all these different programs, let's make it a module and have each one of those programs imported in. So if you have a particular piece of code that you're going to use in this program, this program, this program, this program, instead of doing a copy and a paste, just do an import. Now here's the great thing about an import is example of FICA. Let's say the calculation for FICA changes every year. Well, instead of going into each program where we've copied and pasted that code in, if we used a module, we just make that change in that module, and that's the only place we have to make the change to, and it automatically will basically fix every program that uses FICA. So that's a really, really nice feature as far as functions go. Now, the last thing this chapter talks about is, let's just open up rectangle 2 and let's talk about it. So here's what we've got. We've got a def area, so we've got area, and we've got perimeter, and here's our main. The only difference in this program is we've got this if statement. Now it's got if underscore underscore name underscore underscore equals pick, single pick, underscore underscore main underscore underscore. It's going to call main. So what is going on there is it says when Python provides a way for us to make a determination when the Python interpreter is processing source code file, it creates a special variable called underscore underscore name underscore underscore. If the file being imported as a module and the name variable is set to the name of the module. So that's the nice thing. Whenever we import, it basically, the name, the underscore underscore name underscore underscore will basically get imported with it as well. That's all done behind the scenes. It says it will be set to the name of the module. Otherwise, if the file being executed is a standalone program, the name, the underscore underscore name underscore underscore variable will be set to the underscore underscore main function. So it says if this guy is imported, the name of the file that's being imported will be put into that underscore underscore name underscore underscore. If it's a standalone program, underscore underscore main underscore underscore gets put into name. So if we look at this, this is a standalone program. This is not imported. It now says, okay, so name will have main in there, and so this will be called. So where this really comes into play is if we had this in our circle down here. And maybe we had a main up here. Let me just do a def main. Let me do this. So this guy has a main, and well, you know, we could actually do this. We could ask the user for the radius inside a main. And then we could call okay. So here's what I've done is I've got a main here, and it's going to ask the user for the radius. It's going to then calculate the area, and it's going to print the area. Now, if I run this as is, I'm going to type in a radius, and whoop, I don't know why it's not working. Line 6. I used the word area. Let me do this. Let me do C area. You can't have two areas. So C area. Let's try it again. 45. And there is the area of the circle. Now, if I run geometry again, and I type in a 1, I hit a different letter. Let's try it again. I got to hit Enter key. Let's try 1. It says enter the radius 45, and it comes back. Now you'll notice what happened there was when this guy was called, the name had the actual circle.py in the name of that variable. So in this case here, this was not called. So this is how we can make sure that this, I only, if I import this into another program, I don't want this main to execute. So to make sure that doesn't happen, I have this if statement in there, and that will ensure that it will not execute. But if it's a standalone program, it will execute. So that's the nice feature there. So rectangle 2, when I run it, it asks for the width, the length, and then it gives the area and the perimeter. Okay, so that's kind of nice there as well. So, yeah. So what we could have done there is inside of the geometry, I could actually say rectangle 2 and run it. And if I type in the number 3, I'll type in the length, or the width and the length, and now it's going to basically blow up. It didn't like the length. Yeah, I bet you there's a duplicate name in there. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, but you get the point. You get the point. Okay. Very quickly, if you want to spend some time on the turtle, it's a lot of fun. It basically looks like this. If we open up, I'm gonna do this kind of a backwards way. I think it's called Draw Squares. And I'm going to do a copy and then go into the turtle program. It might already be there. Let's see. Well, that's strange. It worked yesterday. Huh. Well, that's strange. It was working just fine yesterday. Well, anyways, again, make sure that when you come in here, you have to say this. In the main, you have to say T equals turtle dot capital T turtle. Left and right parenthesis. And then wherever you use turtle here, you got to change it to T. And so, yeah. So here's T. And again, they're doing the, it cuts it off. It's doing the if name equals main, call main. Oh, I forgot to do this one. And I had this working yesterday. I don't know why it's not working today, but I think what I got to do is this. I got to do that as a global variable. There you go. Yeah, so T turtle equals turtle, and that should work throughout the whole program. Again, it's upsetting why it doesn't work. That's, the DNS could not be found. I figured out the problem. The problem was I had no internet connection. So, okay, so it finally came up. I'm going to pay, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. Paste that in there and let's run it. So it's pretty cool. Now this t.hideTurtle, if I comment that out, you'll see why they did that. It actually shows that arrow, which is the turtle. Shows it moving around on the screen. If we do a hide turtle, we don't see that. We just see the square get drawn, which is kind of nice, which really makes it appear a lot better that way. So anyways, you want to play around with that? There's a circle one. Is there any others? Yeah, there's my graphics. So there's some, if you want to play around with those are fine. So that's all we have for chapter 5. Make sure you do the homework, turn that in. And if you have any questions, by all means, hit me up and I'd be more than happy to help you.